Hi there gentlefolks, welcome back to my Global Digital School of Art. The video you are about to watch is a very long and lengthy lesson in two parts, but that is the nature of teaching. You need the talk and you need the chalk. But before I get this little lesson underway, there is something which I actually need to say. It's now been 2 years since I first ventured forth and dipped my toe in this huge YouTube watercolour pool, along with one or two of you also, and I was doing a rather humble little cherry, but that was our starting point. We were paddling around in this large pool. So now I think the time has come. I hope you've learned something. I certainly have. Trying to find ways of distance teaching, and I get the feeling that I have got to know one or two of you quite well over that period of time. So I'd like to thank you for your support. Your kind words of encouragement, which have encouraged me on. I've managed to overcome some of my camera shyness. No, more importantly, you put up with a lot of stick with all this white paper dazzling, and me trying to overcome some of my technical difficulties. So we've been in actual fact learning together, and I'd like to thank you for that. But the time has now come when we need to move away from the paddling pool end, and we're going to go in waist deep. So during the course of this video, I would suggest that you take many little respites on the way. Take it cherry bite-size wise. Then you can go and sit in a dark room and think about it and come back for another hammering. Okay, enough of this chat, folks. Let's get this lesson underway. I am working here on a piece of stretched cartridge paper. It is 120 grams in weight, and it's got a nice smooth fine surface on there, and it would normally be used just for the purposes of drawing, but because I've stretched it, I can now use it in conjunction with my watercolours, and it is a lot more economical. Now I'm going to zoom that in so that you can hopefully see the little cherries I've sketched on there. Here they are. They're sketched in a little harder than I would normally go because I need the camera to be able to see it, and they are life-size. My first coat is going to be this pale lemon yellow. Here is my very pale lemon wash, and I'm going to wash that over my cherries there, and I'm using a number 3 brush. I'm staying just clear of my graphite at this moment in time. Right now it's nice and puddly, and I'm just going to leave that on a gentle slope to dry naturally. My next coat is going to be this cadmium yellow. Now look, if you look back at the lemon yellow, you'll see that it's very cool, very pale, and the cadmium yellow is much warmer, almost moving in towards gold. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about sort of hot and cool colours. So this is a cool yellow, and this is a warmer yellow. My next wash is going to be a mixture of my lemon yellow and my cadmium yellow. So really what I'm doing is I'm making a paler cadmium yellow. Right, now this is my second wash going on, and I'm staying down the lower half of the cherry on this one, and that will also apply on this cherry here. Now look, I'm leaving the top in the lemon yellow. There we go. Now the first coat was in actual fact, the lemon yellow was in actual fact damp dry. In other words, it had no puddles on it, so it was safe to go in on the second coat. I'm putting a nice big blob on there. There it is, it's starting to run. Done. My next coat is going to be this vermilion. Now it could well be on your palette come under the heading of cadmium red. Here is my vermilion, and it's a very, very gentle wash, by the way. Right, now I'm about to show you my sacrifice cherries, and I hope that you will do the self same thing. So you can do 4, 6, 8, as many as you want. And look, they're all just a little bit different. And look, this one I've more or less almost covered them in, right? And they will all work. Some better than others, and this little group is really about me. So when you come to do yours, they're going to be about you, because this is the name of the game. This is not about me, this is about you, and they will be your cherries, not mine. Right, now that last vermilion coat is now damp dry, and I'm going to come back yet again with the vermilion, and I'm going to be swinging my board around a little bit. I'll try to keep it in focus, and I'm now going to creep up towards my line. And the reason I'm moving my board around, I know I'm good, but I'm not that good. And I don't want my brush to start to skid. While I'm here, I'm going to do this section, and I'm just short of my guideline there. Right, now I'm also, apart from creeping around here, I'm starting to play the gravity games. So I want my gravity down the bottom section there. But a little bit of gravity in the indentation area. Just a tag in that section. Now look, what I'm looking for here is I'm looking for a contrast between the two cherries, and I don't want them looking like two snooker or billiard balls. So I'm trying to create some interest in there by getting a contrast. Sorry, I'm concentrating on what I'm doing here. I will talk a little later as we go, when I've got something to talk about. At the moment I don't have a great deal. That might be a blessing for some people. In actual fact, if I wasn't going to be talking, I'd probably have this finished in 15 minutes. The rest is all. But that's not the nature of teaching, is it, really? You see, this is, you need the talk and you need the chalk. So at the moment you're getting more chalk than you are talk. Right, I'm going to leave that for a moment and then I'm going to come back again. Right, now this is now damp dry. Now look, I know where everything is, so now I'm going to very, very gently remove some more of the graphite. Now, I've come up close to it and I've buried it here and there, so once I've buried it I can't move it, but the surplus pieces I can, so that is what I'm doing. I will now take my tissue and clean over. Look, there's a little tiny bit of eraser or graphite there. I'll just wipe that over. So I've now got a nice clean surface again. My next coat is going to be this alizarin. Now it may well come on your palette under the heading of Rose Madder or even Crimson Lake. Right, I'm now about to come back with my alizarin Crimson. And I'm just looking around. I'm going to plan this one. Now look, I'm going to come around this bottom edge here. I'm being very cautious to try and keep some sort of clean line around there. And down the bottom here. Look, if I hang around on this too long, I start dragging up the paints which are underneath there. So, look, I'm looking at the tops here, so bear with me. I'm going to turn my board upside down again. There we are. I'm now upside down, and I'm going to drop in a blob at the top. And once again, look, I'm playing gravity games, so I'm going to have to be just a little bit patient here. And allow this to dry off before I come back again. Now look, when I'm talking about patience, patience is about enduring things you don't enjoy. If you enjoy doing what you do, it's not really patience, is it? Right? So I'll stop lecturing and let that dry. Yours fiddles again. Right, I'm now back again, having had a sip of my tea, and I'm back on the alizarin again, and I'm going to drop in another coat now. I'm just going to drop a little bit into the indentation at the top of the cherry. Right, now look, I could in actual fact cut my way around that little stem on there, but not everybody is gifted with the steady hand which I've got. Nerves as much as anything else, so I've gone straight the way over the top of it, just to prove it's not the end of the world. And it would be possible, but I wouldn't recommend it, to put a masking fluid over there. And it's because everything is so small, the masking fluid would be a bit blobby, so you would end up with another problem. So I will show you another way around that problem as we go on. Right, I'm just having a quick look around, maybe just a little tiny bit in there. Right, now I'll leave that again. And look, I've got to bring my two cherries to a kiss point at some point, and I'm not quite ready for that yet. So look, I'm creeping ever closer. I don't know, it makes me laugh. Right, I'm now going to let that one dry off a little bit. Right, we have now reached this stage when what could be considered by many would-be watercolour painters a total nightmare. Right. I'm talking about the blotches while I'm removing any surplus graphite which is around here. Now, it would be normally at this point that they would go rushing off down to their nearest art supplier and start to purchase acrylics and oils. Yeah, okay, now I understand that. So in this next section I'm going to be doing, we are going to be looking at blotchy calming, right? And this is a little bit time consuming, so bear with me and all will become clear. Right, now before I get this little section underway, let's have a recap of what I've actually been doing. I've used a lemon yellow on the upper part of the cherries, and I've come down to a warmer cadmium yellow in the lower section of the cherries. I've used a vermilion in the upper parts of the cherries here, on top of the lemon yellow and over the top of the warmer yellow. And I've now come in with my alizarin on the lower section and a little bit on the top, by the way. So now look, this is what is known as forward planning, but you can only do forward planning if you have some sort of understanding of what it is you're going to try and achieve here. So I'm now going to start easing off these blotches, and I'm going to be turning them into water stain rings where I will have a little bit more control over them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on a clear puddle of water on the top there and on the top there, and I'm going to let some of my paints do their own work, in actual fact. And while that's just settling there, and it goes fairly rapidly, by the way, I'm now going to put on a little bit of my yellow wash back in the top there and ease that back in to my vermilion, and I will do the same at the top here. And I will leave that to do its own thing now. And he says stirring it up just a little bit more. Now I can stir it up. Look, on this section, let's go for this then. On this section over here, I've got a very gentle wash of my vermilion over the top of my chrome. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to plonk on a little bit of water on there, and then I'm going to pick up a little bit of my chrome wash, and I'm just going to ease it up on top there. So what I've in actual fact got there is I've got a sandwich between my chrome wash and my vermilion, and now I'm just gently stirring that sandwich up a little bit. Right, you can see the difference which is starting to occur there. And over this side I had 2 coats of my vermilion washes, so I'm going to now sandwich that one. Right, just gently stir them in using my chrome wash, and look, the edge is starting to disappear. Right, now there is another way I can do that, and that is I need to move my board out of the way just for a moment. I've got clear water, and I'm not wringing it out, I'm just squeezing it out. I've now got what is known as a damp brush, so I can now damp brush my edges. Just cleaning my brush back, and by this process, in reality, I'm now starting to remove some of my watercolour, which is going to make it a little bit weaker. So at some point I will need to come back and put some more pigment on there, and that I will be doing by dry brushing. It's very hard for me to explain all this lot. You need to go back and look at some of the that still life which I was doing, because I did damp and dry brushing in there, And if I go back over all of that again now, this video is going to run out of time. So I want to keep my lemon yellow at the top there, so I've just rinsed my brush and I'm going to ease that one back again. So look, I'm going to take off with a damp brush. Can you see? I'm not sure if you can see that. I've put a puddle on, and then I'll just damp my brush and remove that puddle. So in actual fact, I've now removed paint. So look, I've got lots of options open to me. Let's see if I can zoom that one in a bit closer. I've just removed some of the paint there. Okay, it's very gentle, but watercolours, it is a gentle game. It's a game of patience, and it's a question of understanding your paint and working in conjunction with your watercolours. Now look, I've got a very heavy stain at the top there, so look, I'm just putting on plain water and I'm going to ease that back with my brush to get rid of that little hard edge stain. But as it dries, it will want to come back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a little bit of my lemon yellow wash and let that lemon yellow wash help me out on this one. Right, now this is starting to get very complex now. This stirring up of paints, in this particular case, excuse me, in this particular case I've got primary colours. I've got my yellow, even though there's two yellows, they're still a primary colour. And I've now got a second primary colour, which is the red. Okay, look, there's two reds, but they are still a primary colour. So it means to say that I'm dealing with two primary colours which intermixed together become a secondary primary colour. And so doesn't matter how much I stir these up, they will always remain a secondary primary colour. Because I haven't added the third primary colour, which is blue, it won't turn to mud. Alright? So all it's going to do is turn from yellow and red, it will turn to orange. So I'm not going to get any mud there. There's certainly not from these two primary colours. I'm getting a little bit technical here. So you need, once again, you need to relook at some of the things that I've been doing in my previous videos to get a fuller explanation of that. Right, now I've allowed that wet washing I was doing back there on the cherries time to completely dry off. And look, you can just see at the top there where I've overlapped my lemon yellow over the top of my alizarin. And I know I've run myself into a few problems there because I was staying on that wet wash far too long. One needs to draw back and allow them to dry off a little bit before you keep stirring them up all the time. And another thing which I forgot to mention, look, I'm going to put on a puddle of water here. And then I'm going to get, just wait a moment, I'll carry on talking while I'm waiting there. Look, you may well have noticed that I was using the word chrome wash instead of cadmium. Look, I haven't lost the plot. I just like to check out your attention span every now and again. Right, now I'm now going to place that on top with a tissue. I'm not stirring it up, and then just gently lifting it off. Now look, you can see what I've lifted off onto the tissue. So I'll now move to another cleaner part of that tissue, and you can actually see what has occurred as a result of that. Alright? Right, now, next thing, I've now turned my grape to I've turned my board, grape, attention span again. Look, I've turned my cherry into the vertical position exactly the same way as I did with my apple, because when I come to paint this grape, I want the contours to follow around in their correct position. And so when I come to do the second cherry over there, I will now turn my board so that one's in a vertical position while I'm working. Now look, I've just got wet water here. Wet water, of course water's wet. Clean, fresh water, and I'm just laying it on top. And then I'm just going to wait a moment. Carry on talking. What's he going to talk about now? I don't actually know. Okay, look, I'm now going to gently ease this one in, and I will end up with a bigger blotch at the bottom, but that is no problem to me because I want it. I want the gravity to run in that direction, and I'm starting to get some modelling in here. Look, if I look at the cherry, and we tend to think of cherries as being heart shaped. Well, they're not heart shaped, but we think of them as being heart shaped, and that's fine. But they've also, like the apple, it's got a modelling. In other words, it's got to come out and then tuck back underneath again. So I've got that one in mind. Just laying on a little bit of water here, and look, I'm not stirring it up, I'm just laying the water on, and the water is virtually doing a lot of the work for me. Okay, tickling it. And what was I saying? Oh yes, now look, on the modelling when it comes out, I do notice, and look, I'm not a botanist in any way, shape or form, but I do tend to notice that if a berry or piece of fruit has got a hard stone, it seems to have a division point on one side of the peach or plum, but not necessarily on the other side. So I'm looking for contrast here all the time, and so on one side of this, maybe it's only the fruits which have got hard stones, and I notice it's not on tomatoes. If it seems to have pips, it doesn't seem to have this. So I'm starting to get the division point down through my cherry there, right? So, and it is very gentle, by the way. It's not a hard line. And the way I tend to mention this to my students, I'm talking about live students. Well, you're live. So, okay, you're distant students, but you're still students. I'm going to say this. I'm going to have to be very, very cautious about how I say this. I tend to think of this as two cheeky cheeks in a pair of very tightly stretched pants. Right, now, if nothing else, you or the other students can never look at a cherry or peach again without smiling. Oh, Barry, go and have another cup of tea. Right, now I've calmed myself down a little bit, right, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to do a little bit of dry brushing using my cadmium red or vermilion. And look, I've just popped that little tiny bit on there, and I'm going to come away from that now, because dry brushing is only dry if it's dry. If I stay there too long, it becomes damp. That's damp brushing, which will mean to say I'll actually be taking paint off. And look, I've got a piece of paper down on one side here. There it is. And what I'm doing is I'm picking up my paints, just knocking a little bit of it off until I can get that sort of feathery effect. Now, there's not as much on there as I actually want, but I mustn't stay there. I've got to discipline myself and move away. So look, I could just come back on that a little bit there. Right, now, I don't really know how light that is until I get in some of the darker tones. But no, look, as I come in round, I'm still aware of the modelling I need to get in there. See, I'm slowly building it up. Then move away. Right, now I could bring the whole of this cherry in just by dry brushing. Yes, okay, look, it's going to take a little bit of time. But I mean, say, when we're talking about watercolours, we're talking about a few hours, whereas when you're on oil paints, you're talking about 4 days. And when we're talking about acrylics, then we use the brush strokes in there to create some of the interest. Right, now I'm going to tick away at this, and I did think about, now you know what I'm doing, I could in actual fact tick away and go into speed painting, but I'm still trying to avoid that at this moment in time. So when I first started this, I did think about doing this all in one hit and bringing in a little bit of speed painting, but I've now decided that it's going to be of more value if I do it in 2 parts, and I will do part 1 and part 2 before I upload it, because I know what I'm like. But meanwhile, I'm just going to tick away here, and look, I'm now putting paint in, but that doesn't mean to say that I won't actually be taking paint out by the damp brush process. 1, 2, 3. That's enough. Leave it. I'm going to go down here now. 1, 2, 3. That's enough, right? If I keep going, I'm just going to keep removing more and more of my watercolour paint. Whereas at this moment in time, I actually want to start adding more in. So I'm now going to come down to a number 1 brush. And even number 1 is a little bit on the large side, but it holds a little bit more water. And I want to start putting this area in around this little indentation area. So look, I'm going to leave that to dry off a little bit. Now it's possible that in actual fact, let me just do a little bit over here. It is possible for me to put on a little bit of water. Sorry, I got out of range there. It's possible for me to put on a little bit of water and then come back, let it dry off a little bit. He says going in straight away. It's just that, look, I've got this time problem here. I will be putting my raw paint back on damp. So I've just put that little bit of alizarin back on a damp patch, and I'm now building up around here. Right, now you can see I'm starting to get some modelling in there. I'm suffering a little bit here because I want to get in there and I don't want my brush to skid, which means to say, in order to prevent that, I'm going to have to keep swinging my board about. And if I keep swinging my board about, I know what's... I'm almost painting upside down here now. I know what's going to happen. I'll keep getting out of camera shot. I do find this camera shot a little bit on the difficult side. And trying and talking while I'm painting, my brain starts to engage in on the painting, which means to say it disengages with my mouth, and I have no idea what I'm going to be saying. And I do say some daft things, and on this video, when I load the clip up, I think, oh God, what do you know? What I say? Well, when I'm with a buzz group of students, I can't even remember what I said, and they have a lot of fun reminding me afterwards. Right. So it is the nature of the game. I'm going to stop just for a moment because I am really at a very, very strange angle here trying to get in on there. I need to get that a little bit more upright. That's better. I'm tickling with my dry brush. It's very relaxing, this is, and if I lose control of it, which does happen, I can just lift off the, providing I haven't damaged the paper, I can lift off virtually the whole of the cherry and start again. Right, now I'm back on my number 3 larger brush, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to float some water over the area I've been playing with. I'm not going to hang around on it. I'm just going to leave that alone, get some fresh water, and do the same on the other side. And leave that at a shallow angle to dry. Right, now I've turned the cherry upside down and I'm still on my number 3 brush, and I'm going to clean up that outer edge. I now need to turn that round to let the gravity drop down there. Right, I've now turned the cherry up the right way in order to allow the gravity to drop in. Right, now I'm about to do the same on the other side here. Right, let that one dry. I'm working at such funny angles, trying to keep out of the way of the camera. I'm starting to get a bit of cramp. That's all I need. Right, there we go. Let that dry. Right, now that is now dry at the bottom there. It cleaned up quite nicely in that section there. But in reality, this cherry is now suffering fatigue because I have been using it. It's become a sacrifice cherry. I've been using it to demonstrate too many alternatives. So the grape is suffering for our sake, or in this case your sake. I'm going to start rounding this up because not only is the cherry suffering a little bit of fatigue, but I get a feeling that you may well be as well. I think you might have lost the plot the moment I started talking about putting a pair of tights on the cherry. So I'm going to quieten this down because it's got too much pigment on it now. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to flood it, and I'm removing, look, I'm easing a little bit of all those little brush strokes off of it, and while it's recovering I will just put in a little bit of chat. Now look, the moment I put myself up as a tutor, whether I'm being paid or not is irrelevant. It is now my task to teach in as much as I can. It is for you, the viewer, your responsibility to learn. And that will vary in accordance to your needs. And I don't want to start lecturing as such, but this is the reality of the game. Right, now there is nothing I have done on this cherry which I haven't done in my previous videos. I'm talking about the grapes and the apples. And I'm going to suggest that if you re-look at those, assuming you've already seen them, next time you watch them you will actually see and hear different things, because you are now a little wiser and you've got some questions which you didn't have before. So, in order for you to do that, if you, and I'm talking about the apples and the grapes, and for the new viewers, I'm talking about stretching papers. And somebody's knocking at the door. Sorry about that little interruption, folks. Look, this is a family house I'm working in. Right, it is not a classroom studio. Right, now, I was about to say, if you want to look at the other little videos on my channel, go down to the bottom left hand corner of your screen. You'll see my image. Press on my image or my name. That will bring you to my channel, and it will give you an opportunity to follow part 2 of these cherries, or even look back at some of the things which I've been talking about on this video. Right, now I'm now going to swing this back and now you can see the blotches, and you can see this cherry. I've calmed all the blotches down. I've still got more work to do on this one, by the way. I need to bring the gravity around this area around here, but I'm going to leave this one alone, and I'm now going to work on this one on the second part of my video to bring them both up to sort of equal levels, to see how they're playing against each other, and I can then make my final little tick adjustments to make them compatible. They'll actually come in and give that little tender kiss there. Well, I've also got the stalks to do, and the let me zoom that back. I've got the shadowing to come in underneath the cherries, and they're all part of this, rather than just, they're not just a pair of cherries hanging out in no man's land. Now look, when you're looking at this things which I'm doing here, you do have some great advantages. Yes, okay, you have some disadvantages. With live students we get the banter and we get the immediate questions and answers, which you're not tending to get because of the distance, but no live student would ever have seen this little cherry in close detail in the same way as you have, and they would wait for another week before they would come along and see another little cherry coming up there, whereas you've got the comfort of your own home, and so you can view the videos at a time which is more suitable to you, whereas if you're attending a live class, you have to go at that set time on that set day. Right, so also at the time when I was teaching, I didn't have the advantage of this large screen, which would mean to say that the students, and there could be 30 of them, all trying to get a view on what I was actually doing. And I'm talking now about cherry size, right? Whereas you, it's almost like sitting on my lap. In actual fact, you are getting a better view of this cherry than I am. Right, now I'm going to stop lecturing, stop gassing. I hope you found this little video helpful, and if you have, you will go to video 2 and see where this little cherry is going to go. Meanwhile, bye folks, enjoy.